movie fan. And Pauline Kael was sort of my idol this way. She was the fan. She was the consumer, and her authority came from that. I felt as if the ending of Shine had been mucked with, either to get the time down, or the guy said, the producer said, this is kind of, we need a more upbeat ending. And I was curious to know whether that was true. And it turns out no. It turns out Hicks, apparently the story got really happy really fast in real life, and that's the way it happened.
Can you imagine yourself writing a screenplay? Have you tried?
No, I haven't tried. I've talked a couple times. My best friend writes mysteries, and he and I have talked about doing a screenplay. I think I would have a very difficult time writing something that is product that other people would mess with. And the amount of money that's at stake in movies, and the amount of the dispersal of responsibility for the thing, the director, the actors, the producer, in order to do, writing is very difficult for me, and it takes a lot of time and energy, and once I've done it, it's my thing. I can't imagine putting in the time and energy to do a good screenplay. I mean, something like what David Webb Peoples can do. He's a screenwriter, I think, is really superb.
What's he written?
He's written Blade Runner, and he wrote Unforgiven, the Clint Eastwood Western.
Did you like it?
I thought Unforgiven?
Yeah.
I thought Unforgiven is the first really smart Western since, early Pat.
I did too. I loved it.
What's interesting is, I don't know a single female who likes the film. It's very odd. I've talked to all these people about Unforgiven.
It's interesting.
And I think females think Western, it stinks. And if you can get them to watch it, it's not a Western at all. It's a moral drama. It's it's Henry James, basically. But it's very odd.
My girlfriend and I, Amanda, hates the film. And it's the one film that I just have a wider difference with her than any other film that we've seen together.
If I were going to try to do something, I'd want to do something like that. But that was also an enormous success story, luck story. David Webb Peoples, reclusive, weird screenwriter, I don't know much about him. This script had been shopped around for years, and finally Clint Eastwood bought it. And Clint Eastwood's got enough juice to go, okay, I'll star in it, so they'll make it. This was a weird Western. This is very cerebral for a Western. And I think the only way that it could have got made was if a star director was willing to do it. And the thing about it is, I think for every script like that gets made, there've got to be hundreds of these really intelligent, cool scripts.
There's not somebody that comes along who has the power to get it made.
Right. Or else it gets worked on by the rewrite guys, John Gregory Dunn's got that whole book, Monster, about, they're working on the Jessica Savage story, which became, what was it? Which was a film so bad, it doesn't even have charm. Some things are so bad that they're enjoyable. This was worse than that.
It was. How about writing essays? I did an interview the other night, not on television, but with Dr. Kazin. I mean, the kind of thing that he does, does that appeal to you in a sense?
I think of myself as a fiction writer, and I'm not even a particularly experienced fiction writer. So a lot of the essays in this book, if there's a shtick, the shtick is, oh gosh, look at me, not a journalist who's been sent to do all these journalistic things.
Yeah, but I mean, as some critic wrote about you, you have two things that most journalists wish they had. One is you have a great memory for the phrase, the delivered phrase, the defining phrase. Yeah. And you also have a great power of observation for the moment. You agree with that?
I would agree with that, and the things in this book that most people like are the sensuous or experiential essays, which is basically an enormous eyeball floating around something, reporting what he sees. When you're talking about Kazin, you're talking about something different, which is, the art essay, the belletristic essay. I think there are one, maybe a couple like that in there, but I have this problem of thinking that I haven't made myself clear, or that the argument hasn't been sufficiently hammered home, so I will make the same point 5, 6, 7 times. And I did the E Unibus Quorum thing in there is an argumentative essay that I did 6 or 7 years ago, and I just gave up after that, because it seems as if to make the argument truly persuasive requires 500-600 pages, and nobody wants to read it.
Well, talking about style, what are the footnotes about? I mean, is that just simply...
In Infinite Jest, the endnotes are very intentional, and they're in there for certain structural reasons, and you hear about it. It's sort of embarrassing to read this book. You can almost chart when the essays were written, because the first couple don't have any, but the footnotes get very, very addictive. I mean, it's almost like having a second voice.
But where does it come from? I mean, I'm now on page 981 of Infinite Jest, and the footnotes run, notes and errata run to page, you may know the answer to this, but there are 200.
Yes, but the reader doesn't experience in that way because the end note tags are in the text.
304 footnotes, sir.
There are quite a few. Not some of them are very short. Some of them are only one line long. It is a way. Let's see. This is what. Well, I'm just going to look pretentious talking about this.
Quit worrying about how you're going to look and just be.
I've got news for you. Coming on a television show stimulates your what am I going to look like gland like no other experience. You may now be such a veteran that you're like, you don't notice it anymore. You confront your own vanity when you think about going on TV. So, no apologies, but just that's an explanation. The footnotes, there's a way that, it seems to me that reality is fractured right now, at least the reality that I live in. The difficulty about writing about that reality is that text is very linear, it's very unified. And I, anyway, am constantly on the lookout for ways to fracture the text that aren't totally disoriented. I mean, you can take the lines and jumble them up, and that's nicely fractured, but nobody's going to read it, right? So there's got to be some interplay between how difficult you make it for the reader and how seductive it is for the readers willing to do it. The endnotes were, for me, a useful compromise, although there were a lot more when I delivered the manuscript. And one of the things that the editor did for me was had me pare the endnotes down to really the absolutely essential.
Who's your editor?
His name is Michael Peach, spelled Pietsch, not like the fruit. Senior editor at Little Brown and a fine individual.
What did it do to you? Usually truly remarkable. What weird fun, infinite justice to read the New York Times. Uproarious, it shows off Wallace as one of the big talents of this generation, a writer of virtuistic talents who can seemingly do anything. That's the way I feel about you. I mean, I'm a little bit, I hear a brain at work there. Sort of, where do you want it to go? What is it?
I think not exploded would be the start. That kind of stuff, I dissociate very well, and it's a useful talent. Writing for publication is a very weird thing because part of you is a nerd and you want to sit in libraries, you don't want to be bothered, and you're very shy. And another part of you is the worst ham of all time. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And you have fantasies about writing something that makes everybody drop to one knee, like Al Jolson or something. Of course, you never get it as much as that part wants, but to get a little bit of it is very, very strange because very often for me, I didn't read a lot of the reviews, but a lot of the positive ones seemed to me to misunderstand the book. I wanted it to be extraordinarily sad and not particularly postmodern or jumbled up or fractured. And most of the people, the reviewers who really liked it, seemed to like it because it was funny or it was erudite or it was interestingly fractured.
What does postmodern mean in literature?
It's after modernism.
Okay.
It's a very useful catch-all term because you say it and we all nod soberly as if we know what we're talking about. In fact, we don't. There are certain. When I mean postmodern, I'm talking about maybe the black humorists who came along in the 1960s, the post-Nabokovians. I'm talking about Pynchon and Bartholomew and Barth, DeLillo in the early 70s, Coover. And I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot. Let me see.
But that's the camp you put yourself in.
I think that's the camp that interested me when I was a student. The problem is I think postmodernism has, to a large extent, run its course. The biggest thing for me that was interesting about postmodernism is that it was the first text that was highly self-conscious. Self-conscious of itself as text, self-conscious of the writer as persona, self-conscious about the effects that narrative had on readers and the fact that readers probably knew that. It was the first generation of writers who'd actually read art criticism, and there was a certain schizophrenia about it. It was very useful, it seems to me, because the culture, this was a real beaker of acid in the face of the culture. The culture at the time this came out, this was before, the Youth Rebellion in the 60s, was very staid and very conservative and very Africanish. And the problem, though, is that a lot of the shticks of postmodernism, irony, cynicism, irreverence, are now part of whatever it is that's entered into the culture itself. Right? Burger King now sells hamburgers with "you got to break the rules," right? So I don't really consider myself a postmodernist. I don't consider myself much of anything, but I do know that that's the tradition that excited me when I started to write.
Paul,
is that anything like it is?
It is. Paul Cézanne, the painter, always felt that he had, up until the end of his life, until he created the bathers in like 1907, he always felt like he had to create a big painting, both in terms of size, but in terms of a great piece of work. Do you think about that?
Well, see, it's different. A book is a different kind of object than a painting. A painting, however big it is taken in all at once. Size is an entirely different component of it. For a book, a big book means the reader is going to have to spend a long time reading it, which means your burden of proof goes up, right? Mm-hmm. Big books are more challenging. They're more intimidating. If you're talking about Infinite Jest, I have a problem with length, and it's one reason why I'm grateful to have found a really good editor. Infinite Jest did not start out to be this long. It started out to be a fractured multiple narrative with a number of main characters, and it became, perhaps I was just in denial that this was going to require great length. At a certain point, it became clear that it's going to be very long. Feminists are all saying this. So feminists are saying, okay, I'm going to sit down and write this enormous book and impose my phallus on the consciousness of the world.
And you say,
if that was going on, it was going on at a level of awareness I do not want to have access to.
Do you still play tennis?
I do play tennis. I no longer play competitively.
You played as a junior, and you were competitive and good.
I was good. I was not even very good. I was between good and very good. I was good on a regional level.